All right. So yesterday we did talk about how do we go ahead and read an HL7 message. That's where we halted yesterday, right? We saw that there will be a message, and each message consists of segments, or comprises of segments, and each segment can be divided into fields. And fields may be further divided into components. Components can be divided into subcomponents, and so on. Right. And yesterday we did take a look at an example of HL7 message. We did see how do we read one of the segments, which is PID segment. We also understood that every segment has its own name, and that name will always be a three-letter acronym. And every acronym has its own full form, and that would indicate what kind of data would be present in that specific segment. Okay, so let us continue from where we have halted yesterday. So we did see how do we read an HL7 message in terms of fields. So today we will take a look at what are components, how do we understand components, what are these blanks that we have, and we'll also talk about blank fields too. And then we'll be able to read any HL7 message. Um, right? So let's go ahead and go back to the example that we have seen yesterday. So this was our HL7 message, right? And whenever we want to read out or whenever we want to understand which field has what kind of data, we saw that PID segment, every segment has its own fields, and each field is dedicated for certain data type, or sorry, certain data element, right? Uh, For example, if you want to go ahead and look at name, we understood that PID field number 5 is dedicated for patient name, and this is universal. And these are fixed placeholders, they don't change. For example, if you do not have that data, then that field should be left blank. If you see here, we have date of birth. Let's say patient's date of birth is not captured, or for some reason they do not know. And if that data is not present, then this field will be left out as blank. Okay, so that people can understand that there is no date of birth captured, or that there is no date of birth saved for this specific patient. And when we want to go through these fields, each field will have its own field number, or field sequencing, or field positioning. So this is field number 1, field number 2, field number 3, 4, 5, and so on. So that's how we go ahead and read every field within HL7 message. Okay. Now that we have understood what is field positioning, and how do we read an HL7 message, so PID5 is dedicated for patient name, right? And every field, not every field, but few of the fields based on the kind of data can be further divided into components to make the data displayed, or data sent even more in a clear manner. Fields can be further divided into components. And this factor of dividing fields into components is dependent on the concepts of data type. We are not going to take a look at data type right now. We have two separate sessions where we will be talking in depth about data types in the future. But the basis of breaking down the fields into components is based on data type. Okay, that is the point that we need to keep in mind. But why do we need to divide them into components? Right? For example, if you take name itself, name, we understood that it's name, but name can have multiple components. first name, last name, your suffix, maybe the name can carry prefix like doctor, suffixes like junior, senior, or something else, right? And you may have middle initial, and so on. If these components are not broken down, then it is very difficult to identify which component is what. So that is the reason these fields, wherever we have multiple components or multiple terms, they are basically divided into multiple components. And each component is separated from each other with the help of a component separator called as caret. So this is our component separator. Okay. And if you consider the name itself, which is here, how do we read it? So we will call out the segment name, we'll call out the field number, and then we will call out the component number. The way we have fields with field positions, once a field is divided into components, each component will have a component number. So this is component number 1, component number 2, this is component number 3, 4, 5, and 6. 3, 4, 5, and 6 are currently blank, which means there is no data there. That is the reason they are left blank. If you do not have any data, it is not mandatory to go ahead and send the carets and empty components. You can also send like this. Okay, and if you talk about PID 5.1 and see, that would be patient's last name. Okay, and PID.5.2 is patient's first name. Okay, so this is 5.1, this is 5.2, and PID 5.3 would be your middle initial. Okay, so that's how we go ahead and read any field and the components that are present in a certain field. So here we don't have middle initial right now, so let's go ahead and add it. So let's say that would be our middle initial. Okay, so that is how you keep reading the HL7 message. Components can be further divided into subcomponents, but we'll take a look at that at when we are going through a wide variety of HL7 messages in the future sessions. But for now, at the basic level, we need to understand segments, fields, and components so that now you can read any HL7 message that is given to you. Okay, so another question that I may have is what is this tilde that I am seeing here, right? On most of the segments, I am seeing fields and components, and that is pretty understandable. But what is this tilde? This tilde represents a repetition separator. Okay, and this one as well, we'll take a look at it once we get into detailed structure of every message. Okay, we are going to take a look at every, as I said, we are going to take a look at variety of messages, and every message will have few segments. We will deep dive into few those segments and the fields associated with those segments, their functional meaning and reason for their presence in the HL7 message, and how do we send that out and all. So we'll take a deeper look at them in the upcoming sessions. Okay. Next, let us take a look at, let's go back to our presentation. So yesterday we saw this basic aspect. How does HL7 messaging work? Right? I gave you a gist of understanding on how HL7 messaging works. HL7 messaging works purely based on events, and they are specifically called as trigger events because they trigger the message from one system to another. Okay. So the standard definition of trigger event is an event that is happening in the real-time world creates the need for data to transfer from one system to another. Okay. And if an event is really doing that, where it is generating a need for the data transfer, such kind of events are called as trigger events because they are triggering the data from one system to another system. So if you go back to our hospital workflow, there may be many series of events that will take place once the patient arrives at the hospital, right? And every event is not a trigger event. Let's take a look at the sequence. Let's say patient has come to the hospital and patient is trying to, um, let's suppose that patient is trying to go ahead and send or meet certain doctor. He comes to the receptionist, says that he's here for the first time and he'll get registered himself. Registering a patient is one event. And after that, he found that he has given an incorrect phone number. So he asked them to correct that phone number immediately. And then the phone number gets updated. That is another event. So registration of patient is conclusion of an event because they are clicking on save button to save the patient details. After finding the fact that the phone number is incorrect, that phone number gets corrected again and they click on save. So this is conclusion of second event. And then they ask the patient who they want to meet and they will provide some doctor's name. And an appointment is scheduled. That is another event. Okay. And these events, demographic or patient registration that gets created will trigger a demographic message to the EHR system so that EHR system can have that same patient record and both PM and EHR can be in sync with each other. All right. And then if you go back to the second event, which is update of patient registration details, again, even that particular event also will be sent over to EHR so that the phone number gets updated in EHR. Appointment gets scheduled, even that is the trigger event because an appointment trigger will be sent over to the EHR system. Let's say after appointment is scheduled, patient goes to the doctor and before meeting the doctor, there will be basic vitals that will be captured and saved in the EHR system. Vitals like blood pressure, uh, whether the patient is diabetic or not, maybe SpO2 to capture the saturation levels of the patient, and so on. So there may be height, weight, uh, and many other basic vitals that will be captured, and all of this will be saved to the EHR system itself. Okay, now this is another event that is happening, right? The way we had for registration and then scheduling. Now this is another event that where it says it will capture all the event information. Okay, vitals information, and that vitals event information will be saved to the EHR system. But do we need to send that data anywhere at this point? Obviously, no, because EHR is the final placeholder to store the clinical data. So, vital information will be captured. Event is happening where every information is captured and saved to the EHR system. Then patient goes to the doctor, meets the doctor, and an encounter gets created. Or during that encounter, patient will describe his problem, right? So, this event that happened, which is vital event, is not a trigger event because we are not sending the data from EHR system to any other system. So when the patient is in hospital, there will be many series of events. And out of these series of events, only the events which will trigger the data from one system to another, or which will create the need for the data to be sent from one system to another, such kind of events are called as trigger events. Okay. So in this series of events that we have seen just now, patient registration is a trigger event because it is sending data from PM to EHR. It has to send, not it's sending, it has to send the data from PM to EHR. Update of patient registration, yes, it is also trigger event. Now after that, uh, event after that patient appointment schedule, that is also a trigger event. Then vitals are captured, right? And that is not a trigger event because vitals are not sending data or they are not being sent to any other system anymore, right? So these are called as trigger events, and this is the basis of HL7 messaging principle. So patient getting admitted into the hospital, so that is one trigger event. Then an observation. For example, an order is placed by the doctor, and this order information is sent from EHR to the lab system, and that is another observation, another event that's happening. So there are many examples wherever an event happens, and if it is sending message from one system to another, it is called as trigger event. So now, if you categorize the trigger events in the hospital, or if you categorize the entire hospital uh, into different departments or different uh, mechanisms, you can see that we have registration is one type of category, and appointment scheduling is second type of category. Ordering labs or receiving results is another type of category. Then you have pharmacy related transactions, and then you have invoices where claims and all will be generated and will be sent over to the insurance companies. So these are five variety of categories that we have. We have many more. I am talking about what we have seen as per our hospital workflow. Okay. So I did not account it everything here. This is for you to give a basic understanding of what are the basic categories that we have as per the hospital workflow that we have seen. So if we talk about these categories, we are having these English names, right? Appointment scheduling, labs, pharmacy, invoices, and so on. But what do we call them in terms of HL7 message? HL7 message mechanism has given its own names to each of these events that are happening. Okay, so let us look at those names. Registration. So when we talk about registration, it is called as ADT. Anything that is part of registration is called ADT. ADT stands for admit, discharge, and transfer. Okay, so any event that falls under this category, admit, discharge, and transfer, will be represented as ADT. Now, we may have many different events here. How do I identify those events? We will see that in the upcoming slides. But for now, we are taking a look at the base categories that we have and how they are called in terms of HL7 messaging. Next, you have appointment scheduling. So appointment scheduling is called as SIU, which is scheduling information unsolicited. And then next you have lab orders. Lab orders is represented as ORM, ORU. ORM stands for uh, order message and observation request message, and ORU stands for observation response unsolicited. Okay, so we have ORM message for order, ORU message for results. Then finally you have invoice generation, and this is done through DFT messages. DFT stands for detailed financial transaction. Okay, don't worry. We will talk about these full forms again when we actually take a look at each of the HL7 message events in detail, and we will see what are the things that we have. All right. Now, each of these registrations can have further divided into many events. As ADT represents admit, discharge, and transfer, and within that admit, discharge, and transfer, there will be many events that will be happening in the real-time world. So I have represented only a couple of events or three events for each one of them so that we can see what all events we have, but it is not limited to these events. Okay, if you talk about registrations, creating a new patient and getting a new patient registered, that is one event. Updating of existing information in the PM system, which means phone number change, email change, address change, or anything as such, they will be considered as update of existing information. And this will go ahead and trigger um, an update message to the EHR system. So that is second event. Within registrations, there will be many more events. Admission of a patient, inpatient into the hospital. We are talking about outpatient scenario here, registration, update of existing info. And patient might be transferred to a different location or different department. That is also one event. So there could be possibilities of many different events under or within registration category. Next, if you look at appointment scheduling. So appointment scheduling has three events. New appointment, which is nothing but creation of an appointment. Next, you have update appointment, which is update of an existing appointment, like changing the status of an appointment is called update of existing appointment. Next, you have cancellation of an appointment, where patient doesn't arrive, but you want to cancel the appointment, then you go ahead and do that. So that's another event. Within lab orders, you have one event each. For orders, you have orders event. For results, you have results event. Within orders, you have ORM, OML. ORM represents uh, observation request message for any other order other than lab orders. For OML, you will be using OML is dedicated for lab tests or lab orders and so on. Next, you have invoice generation, which is uh, generating the billing details for all the services provided by the hospital. Okay. Now, these are events, and we are seeing that in terms of our regular spoken languages. But again, how are they represented in terms of HL7 message? We saw earlier that each category is divided into divided as ADT, SIU, and so on. Now, let's see how events are named after under each one of the events, each one of these things. So if you look at registration, new patient registration is represented as ADT A28. Okay, A28. Next, you have update of existing patient record, which is A31. So these are event types or event codes. These event types will tell us what kind of event it is. So if I look at SIU S15 or S15, I understand that it is a cancellation message. How do I know? Based on my experience so far, I have worked on many SI interfaces, so I know that S15 is cancellation of appointment. And these are not limited. We have more than 80 event types overall spread across various message categories. Okay, so we are seeing only few of them, that is most frequent and mostly used in today's industry. Okay, I mean most frequently used in today's industry, not mostly used, but most frequently used. So if you look at appointments, new appointment is represented with event type of S12, update of existing appointment is S15, and cancellation of appointment is, sorry, update of appointment is S14, and cancellation of appointment is S15. And orders you have O01, results you have another category R01, and then finally billing details has an event of P03. All right, now question would be, why do we need to know them? Right. The way we have names for every book that we go ahead and read. Let's say if you take a look at school books, we have biology, we have zoology. By looking at the name of the book, we will understand what kind of book that is. In the same way, every HL7 message that we transact will have its own name, and those names are nothing but these message codes and event types. Let's go back into HL7 message and take a look at where exactly this is present. And once we look at this message type and event type, we will be able to determine what kind of event that message belongs to. So that's an important factor, right? When we look at any HL7 message, we need to first identify what kind of message it is, which particular event got this particular message generated. So let's go back to our HL7 message and try to understand. So if you look at this HL7 message, there is a segment called MSH. So MSH stands for message segment header. So it will have some primary information like who is sending data, who is receiving data and all. But if you look at one of the fields here, which is MSH9, we have the name of this particular HL7 message. And what is the name? It says ADT A04. Okay, so let's understand that field. So we have MSH.9, name of the message. And within MSH.9, we have MSH.9.1. And that is for message code. So this is nothing but our category that we have looked at every category that may be available within the hospital. Next, you have message.9.2, which is event type, right? And this will represent what kind of event is taking place, which has triggered this particular HL7 message. And finally, we call this as message type. MSH9 is called as message type, and this is nothing but combination of message code, which is 9.1, and then you have your event type, right? So 9.1 and 9.2 combined, they are called as message type. Okay, and it is relaying us very important information on what kind of trigger it is. For example, if we have here A31, by looking at the message, I will understand that this is a message that got generated when patient information got updated in the PM system. Okay, so that's how you go ahead and understand the structure of an HL7 message and what are the various event types that you have and how you can make use of those event types to understand what kind of message it is. Okay, now that we have seen what is a trigger event, how HL7 messaging works based on this basic principle of trigger events, uh, we need to go ahead and take a look at each and every common event that we have. So what we are going to do is we are going to take a look at each of these categories and understand what would be the structure of an HL7 message with the type of message code or with the type of categories that we have. The number of segments may change. The kind of segments may change, right? So we need to take a deep dive into each message type and understand what segments can or may be involved in those particular message types. And once we understand what all segments are involved, we'll take a deeper look at each field within the segment. So we would be doing this exercise. Let me go ahead and pull out the. So we will be going through these PDF files. Okay, and these PDF files would have information about a certain message type, and then we will talk about their segments, what all segments are involved, and then we will jump into each segment and details of each segment. Okay, if you look at this one, we have message segment header, and within message segment header, you have this table called MSH, and within MSH, you have field 1, field 2, field 3, field 4, and 5. So whatever is highlighted in green is what we are going to discuss about. Whatever is left without green, we'll leave those fields. So because covering everything in every segment, every field is not possible. Based on my experience, I have highlighted the fields that we usually discuss about in our implementation calls or in our project go live calls or support calls. So I have highlighted them because these are the things that you need to know for sure. And we'll be discussing about each of these items. Okay. So I'll pause here for a minute. Any questions from anyone so far? All right. So we will be concluding today's session here. We'll continue tomorrow with all the with the by taking a look at the message structures and their detailing in terms of segments and fields and all. Okay. If you guys would like to continue from tomorrow, please go ahead and reach out to Srinivas to enroll in the session. And from tomorrow, we'll be having uh, sessions for people who are enrolled. And please reach out to Srinivas if you have any questions or anything as such. Okay, I'll paste his number here and you can just WhatsApp him and he will give you the information that is needed. Yeah, Ravi, you have a question?
No, I'm fine. Thank you.
Okay, all right. That's Srinivas's number, and I will also provide you the US number for people who are from US. All right, those are the numbers of Srinivas. Please reach out to him, and he will let you know all the basic formalities that has to be completed for joining the session or enrolling in the course.
Yeah, Dixon, I have a question.
Yeah, Ravi, go ahead.
See, these file formats, whatever you have been showing us, right, each module, is it available somewhere in the online where, let us say, tomorrow, if you wanted to cross verify whether these files are formatted correctly or not, is there a way
Mhm.
we can validate or with the general?
You have detailed specification. We'll take a look at that as well. When we start
Okay,
taking a look at message structures, we'll
okay.
be seeing where to read the specification from. What
Hmm.
documents you have? How do you cross verify or understand the basic structure provided by the HL7 organization? We'll take a look at all
Okay,
of that. We have
okay. Thank
to keep it short. We have, yes, we have.
Okay, thank you. And also, all these sessions we are going to record, right, in future also?
Yes. Yes. Every session will
Yes.
be recorded and uploaded to the drive, and drive
Okay,
access will be given to people who enroll, and they can go ahead and view them anytime. They will have access to the videos for 6 months.
okay. The reason I was asking is in tomorrow, in case developers they want to refer, right,
Right.
it might be easy for them. Yeah.
Yes,
Thank you.
yes. You will have access to those videos for 6 months. So you
Sure,
can view them anytime.
sure. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much, Jackson. It was nice demo. So we will see you tomorrow.
No problem. Anytime. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
All right, guys. So let's conclude today's session here. If you guys have any questions, I'll stay back for another 5 minutes. You can ask me any questions that you have. If not, feel free to drop. We'll catch up tomorrow. Thanks, everyone.
Hello?
Hello. Yeah, Austin.
Yes. Yes, sorry, Eli, mistake with the name. Um,
No worries. Eli.
can I have the course outline? What will be covered during the program?
Yes. So Srinivas will share the curriculum with you, but I'll quickly take you through that. So the entire course is divided into uh, two categories. First section or first category would be purely based on HL7 message structure. So we'll be taking a look at as we have started it, we will take a look at HL7 messaging structure, and we will deep dive into each message type and understand the structure of each message type. We'll take a look at all the segments that are involved in each of these message types, right? That is about HL7. And then we have second part, which is purely into Mirth Connect. So in Mirth Connect, we'll be talking in detail about the basics of Mirth Connect. Why do we need an integration engine? What is the uh, provenance of an integration engine? And what kind of other integrations, the engines that we have in the industry? And then we will start from basics of application tour, and we'll talk about how do you build interfaces, how do you go ahead and develop your transformations if you want to change the message type, or if you want to change or make changes to the HL7 message. How do you do that within Mirth integration engine? We'll take a look at that. We will see how communication protocols work on this integration engine, various communication protocols like TCP/IP, file reader to file writer, and then we will also see uh, database reader and database writers, which is to extract data from database, construct HL7 message from scratch. So let's suppose you are given a EHR software or a PM software, and they say that this software is not compatible with or not generating any HL7 message right now. Then how do you go ahead and take that database and construct HL7 messages for the events that are happening real time? Right. So we'll take a look at that scenario. We'll see and develop, not just see, we'll also develop. We'll see the step-by-step process of how do you develop an interface that can do this
Okay.
of constructing HL7 message. And
Okay. I
then
was
you'll
going to
also,
ask
Mhm.
if there'll be practical sessions.
Yes, we will see how do you create a channel from basics. So we were
Okay.
going to go from zero
Yeah.
to more than intermediate level
Okay.
in
Thank you.
terms of developing interfaces on Mirth integration engine.
Okay. That sounds good.
Okay,
Yeah.
because databases is something that is complicated and critical, and as a developer, you need to be aware of it and have hands-on. So we definitely have that covered. And we'll also see how do you interpret an HL7 message. Let's say you receive an HL7 message. If you are an integration engineer, you may send the data or you may receive the data, right? So if you are receiving the data, then how do you interpret it and write the data back to the database? So we will develop those kinds of channels as well, and see how do we develop it. And during this course of development, we may have to learn about SQL, we may have to learn about JavaScript, XML, E4X. I'll be teaching all of those basic stuffs as well, except for SQL. SQL is something that you have to go ahead and learn by yourself, and that too very basics of SQL, not in depth. I'm just looking for DML, DDL commands,
Okay.
and joins,
Okay. Thank you.
right? So those are three topics that you have to learn, and we have time. So we have almost 15, not 15, but maybe 10 sessions. Not even 10. We have actually 12 to 15 sessions uh, before starting SQL. So before starting to use SQL. So by the time we reach that point, if you can spend some time and learn SQL, if you are not aware of it, if anyone is not aware of it, then that would be great.
Okay. Thank you.
And then we will have last two sessions talking specifically about certification. How do you prepare for certification? You provide some guidance on what all topics that we have to go through, how much weightage will be given to each of the topics, what all chapters from HL7 specification we have to cover, and we'll also deep dive into one of the chapters called conformance. And then we will go ahead and jump into the final session where we'll talk about project lifecycle and what are the other standards that we have in healthcare today in terms of fire and CCDs. So I'll give you a basic gist of these two standards as well, and then we'll conclude our training.
Okay, all sounds good. Thank you.
Yep, no problem. All right. Any other question from anyone? All right. Thank you, everyone. If you guys do not have any questions, let's conclude today's session here. We'll catch up. Okay, there is a question in the chat. Is the PDF uploaded to Drive? Yes, PDFs are uploaded to Drive. All the materials that you are seeing on during the training will be uploaded to the Drive. All right. Thank you, everyone. You all have a great day ahead. We'll catch up tomorrow. Bye bye.